I really did think that was going to be a Sasquatch story for a minute. So,
Well, that's what we thought for a second. We were going to have to do the rattlesnake and Bigfoot podcast, and yeah, that's not the direction it ended up going. Welcome to the Greens and Blues Sports Center podcast. This episode, Zach sings Kumbaya. I become the Pied Piper, and Zach and I work through some of the most interesting wildlife encounters we've had on the mountain. Well, good morning, Zach. How's it going?
oh, it's a fine day in Oklahoma, Eric. There's a little snow on the ground right now. It's cold, it's snowy in Norman, Oklahoma. Beautiful day. Everything shuts down in
I
Oklahoma
was
when it
going to say
snows.
it's a little unusual, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't happen here often, and it shows. People don't know how to drive on it. People don't know what they're doing with it. We are ill-equipped for this, so we just kind of hunker down. In Colorado, if you get a foot of snow, it's no big deal. Here, if you get a foot of snow, it's like an apocalypse. Like you go to the store, it looks like COVID. Like there's a run on the weirdest things possible.
Yeah.
A run on cocoa powder and whole chickens or something like that.
Oh,
So,
wow, that's
yeah,
I was expecting toilet paper and milk, but
milk, eggs, and bread. That stuff's gone. Like kiss that goodbye. But
someone's baking cookies apparently as well.
yeah, I guess hot cocoa. I guess with the cocoa powder,
Oh, I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
roasting whole chickens. I don't know.
Yeah.
Everybody
Why
was
not?
out of those. So yeah, it's lovely. I love the snow. Living where I live, I deeply, deeply miss having snow around and watching the snow fall in the evening. Yeah, how about yourself, Eric? What's going on in Fredericksonville these days?
We're doing well. Same thing. We got a little snow last night. It's really chilly, but it's good by us. A few hours after we're done recording, Zach, the ice will be melted and the snow will be greatly reduced. I won't even shovel my driveway. I'm just lazy like that. And our driveway faces south, so we're kind of spoiled that way. So getting a little bit of a twitch. I'm seeing, our pal Will Erickson
Mm,
posting all the everything he's hiking, and I call him our pal. He's everyone's pal. So I have kind of the itch. I really would love to get out there and do kind of a winter 13er excursion and try to tackle a summit or two. So I do have a pair of 13ers in the Front Range I have my eye on.
hmm.
So they are just south of Mount Snicktow.
Yeah.
So you go from Loveland Pass, you go up the trail. If you go north, you hit Snicktow. If you go south, you're gonna hit Cupid and
And
Grizzly
Grizzly.
B.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of got my eye on those. They've gotten some snow, but it doesn't look like a crazy amount. So I don't know if I'm gonna have a chance to tackle those this winter, but those are kind of at the top of my list to consider. So have you done Cupid and Grizzly B or no?
I have, but in early summer. Ironically, there was a little bit of snow on them when I did them, but that was June, which may have actually had more snow than is up there now. I don't know.
Hmm, possible.
Thing about that area is it gets really windy up there.
That's
So
what I've
you've
read.
just, I think more than the snow, you've got to really try to pick a day where you're not going to just be like, Dorothy in Kansas, get blown off the hill there. So yeah, that sounds fantastic. I've looked with envy at Will Erickson as well, doing some peaks in the Sangres, and thought, maybe I could sneak away, but I'm afraid work is beckoning a little too much these
No,
days. And so,
yeah.
I'll make my way out to see you in March. Maybe we'll get up and do something in March. Maybe we'll redeem ourselves on James Peak.
Give James another go and try not to get blown off of that one.
Yeah, because that's what happened last time.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think that all sounds great, Eric. It's a really low snow year, scary low.
It's frightening. It is.
Yeah, I'm actually contemplating maybe a late May hike in Colorado. It may actually work. I don't know. We'll see.
Yep. Well, on that note, what are we going to talk about today, Zach?
Well, this is an idea. Eric and I keep a running list of show topics, and I think I brought this up maybe 40 episodes ago. And it just keeps kind of getting
Not that
kicked.
I've been resisting this one.
No, no, it just keeps kicked down the list. We've got some other ideas kicking around, but we want to talk about wildlife today and encountering wildlife while hiking, something that does happen quite frequently. And when we say wildlife encounters, we're not meaning necessarily wildlife encounters of the third kind. Those are aliens, right? Um, or wildlife encounters of the good kind or bad kind, just wildlife encounters. So I've got a couple stories I want to tell that are more, one's kind of bad and one of them is really good. We just want to talk about what we've seen, what we haven't seen, some avoidance strategies. We're talking about central Colorado here. We're not talking about Alaska.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what we wanted to talk about because a lot of us actually go to the mountains to encounter wildlife, or that certainly is a welcome thing when you run into a deer or an elk or something. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what we're chatting about today.
Well, do we want to kick it off with, you just mentioned it, wildlife that we haven't seen and kind of get the ball rolling with expectations of, what haven't we run into, Zach?
So, I have been hiking for, I'm 47, since I was probably 2 or 3 years old, or at least I got maybe carried then. But in my entire life, I have never seen a bear or a mountain lion or a wolf while hiking. I have heard a mountain lion while in my tent in the San Pedro parks in northern New Mexico. I heard a
Hmm.
mountain lion scream next to my tent with my dad.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, that'll curdle the blood a little bit.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Um, I'll wake you up. We used to go to the San Pedro parks in October, and there's a ton of elk there, and we'd go to listen to the elk bugle
Yeah.
and call one another in the middle of all. I mean, you can't sleep. Like, all you hear is elk bugling and trampling of hooves. In the middle of all that, probably 2 in the morning, we heard a mountain lion row, right? And
Wow. Oh
but
my gosh.
I've actually never seen a mountain lion. I've seen a lot of evidence of bear.
Oh yeah.
I saw one time in the Gila Wilderness in New Mexico, I saw a steaming pile of bear poo on the trail, and I heard something, so I think I scared a bear off, and
Mm.
I think he may have dumped some fuel on the way out.
That was
Um,
his reaction.
like, whoa, I got to get rid of this, and I got to go. But I've never actually seen either of those on a hike. Never seen a wolf. I've seen a bobcat in New Mexico, but never seen one in Colorado.
Oh, interesting.
I've seen more snakes on the trail in Colorado than I have bears, wolves, and mountain lions combined. Yeah, how about your experience with the big ones, the lions and tigers and bears? Oh my, Eric.
Oh my. Yeah, I've hiked probably as far some it's less than half of the amount that you have, and time wise even less than that. So the only bear I've ever seen outside of a zoo has been rooting through a neighbor's trash. Literally have never seen a bear on the mountain, never seen a cat, never seen a wolf like you. Yeah, most of my experiences have been a bit more innocuous than that. I guess maybe I'm thankful for that, but also I don't have the level of stories that some of our friends have told us about when it comes to encountering some of the big ones like you mentioned. So
If you're seeing a mountain lion, it's bad. That's
it's I would imagine you're not doing enough to try to deter them from being near you if they're
yeah,
that
or
close, I would think.
yeah, they are very reclusive. They don't
Mm,
want to be seen. So what I have seen, and I think you're probably the same on this, seen a lot of deer, a lot of elk, increasingly moose. Moose
hmm.
have been increasingly moving further and further south in Colorado as the years have gone on. So I've seen a lot of moose. I've seen foxes. I've seen coyotes.
Yep.
I've actually, probably one of the more reclusive animals, I've seen pine marten on a couple of occasions.
Oh yeah. Yep.
They're pretty cool. Never those big ones. So when we tell our stories, I think we're going to be talking from a limited set here. When you have seen wildlife, Eric, are there places in particular where you have seen them? Parts of
You know,
Colorado where you tend to see more?
For me, it's been kind of a mixed bag. It's been all over. I've got, I think, two major stories, and one is in the mosquitoes, one's in the Sawatch. Run into moose on a road in the mosquitoes. At 5 in the morning, I scared the daylights out of one that was sleeping on the side of the road. So that wasn't exactly great, but I've run into one trying to get up Rosalie Peak. He was just kind of munching, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to get this bicentennial behind him. So I got to kind of wave my hands and make noise and go around him. But it's been kind of all over. So it sounds to me, we were talking a little before, like you've had a little more concentrated pockets of where you've encountered wildlife. Yeah.
For me, I don't, I'm not here to contradict you or anything, what you've seen, but boy, I see a lot more in the San Juans, and actually in the Sangres is when I tend to see the most. I'm
Yeah.
not sure why that is. And one of my stories will be from the Sangres. I feel like I've seen the most wildlife there, the most concentrated sightings of especially deer, elk, mountain goats, foxes, and coyotes. Those kind of larger fauna I tend to see more in the Sangres and in the San Juans. I used to hike a lot in the 10-mile range and the Mosquitoes. I would see some deer and elk there,
Mhm.
but not as much as those other places. And lately, hiking in the Swatch, I've seen very little wildlife. I think that's maybe because it's crisscrossed by a fair number of roads. There's a lot of foot traffic through there. It's just
Yeah,
harder for
more
animals,
people.
just more people. So the animals there tend to be a little bit more reclusive. In general, I see them in those areas that are quote unquote more wilderness.
Yeah,
When I used to hike a lot in the Gores, and actually one of my stories is from the Gore, a little bit more wildlife there, but certainly you're going to find more wildlife the more off the beaten path you get in Colorado, and the more kind of roadless range there is, I think there's more of it.
for sure.
I wanted to say something about wildlife avoidance.
Mm.
Is there anything you do to avoid wildlife, or when you see it, what do you do, Eric?
Yeah, if I'm hiking by myself, I'm probably not as cognizant of the need to do things like make noise and kind of flail around and look like a goof just to,
You kind
make
of do
sure
that
that
already anyway, right?
well, I guess that's probably comes naturally to me, but especially when I do see something like a moose or an elk, even the ones that aren't quite as aggressive as others might be, that's what I tend to gravitate towards is just making some noise. You had mentioned banging your trekking poles together. I love that idea.
Hmm.
Or clapping your hands, just making it very aware to the wildlife in the area that you're there as long as you're not going to act aggressively towards them. Hopefully, they get the hint that you're just kind of passing through and not trying to cause trouble or anything like that. We've heard the strategies, if you run into a bear, look big. I think there's certain species of bears where that's more effective than others.
I think
Which
generally
ones?
that works with black bears.
Okay.
Well, and they say to do that with grizzlies as well. Look big, make a lot of noise. But black bears in particular, they don't want anything to do with you because they
Yeah,
can't do much with you. So
yeah, I was gonna say we're not very tasty to them.
they're
Um,
quite sinewy.
too much connective tissue in us. So yeah, those are the things that I've done when I'm hiking by myself to try and avoid wildlife, or if I do see wildlife, to kind of let them know, hey, I'm here, but I'm not aggressive. I'm not trying to cause any problems here. So I don't know. What would you add to that, Zach?
Usually, encountering wildlife is one of two forms. I either see it from afar and I'm like, oh, neat, elk,
Yeah.
deer,
Yeah.
wow. Or I like round a corner and like
It's
there's
right
a
there.
deer or an elk there, and I go, oh. And usually that's a spontaneous, natural, organic reaction, and it's quite loud. I project a lot. And so that has the unintended but happy consequence of alerting the deer to my presence, or the elk in this case. I was
Or the
backpacking.
bear that just pooped.
Yeah, or the bear's like, whoa, I got to get out of here. Um, yeah, I was backpacking this summer in the Sangres, and is in Garner Creek, if anyone's ever hiked that area. And I was going up Garner Creek, and it's very wooded, and the trail kind of braids along a creek there. And I kind of turned a corner, and there was a female elk not less than 7 feet from me, and we're like looking eye to eye, right?
Yeah.
And I go, "Oh my God!" And it was, and its look, if an elk could speak, was, "Oh my God!" And that had the happy consequence of it being like, "Whoa, I got to get out of here. This is weird." So yeah, if I see it from a little further off, I clap and I sing whatever song is in my head at that moment. Uh,
Yeah.
so you guys know we're sing songy here, so I'll start singing. I had this image, Eric, for you to avoid wildlife. Everybody knows
Uh-oh.
you're a musician. Maybe you could bring along like a little ukulele, and as you're hiking, you could just be strumming it, singing, kind of you're doing your thing, like working on your songs, and I think you would avoid wildlife if you did that.
I,
I'm just going
oh,
to throw that out there.
there'd be a 20-mile radius where there would be nothing living before or after I come through there. If I brought a ukulele and started singing, that
Or
would be quite a sight.
Or you could be like, who is it that they follow? Like the Pied Piper,
The
excuse
Pied
me. I
Piper,
knew it was
yeah.
alliterative. You could be like the Pied Piper and Eric strumming his little. I see you with a pink ukulele, Eric, strumming your ukulele, walking along with a train of deer,
Oh,
elk, rabbits,
all the
squirrels,
marmots are going to be following me, listening to my pink ukulele songs. Oh my gosh.
pika, marmot,
Yeah.
whatever rodent. Maybe a beaver will leave its lodge and be like, I should follow this man.
What
So
is happening here? A crowd attracts a crowd, and all the marmots would be bringing the otters with them. Yeah, that would be something. That
yeah,
would be something.
we were told I backpacked in Alaska for a couple weeks when I was a teenager with my dad, and we were told that when walking through willows, you needed to sing songs and yell out a lot. I
Yeah,
don't think we need to do that in Colorado, but I guess I wanted to talk about it because a number of us that hike do occasionally, if not in my case, for the most part, hike solo. And I do think it's important that if you go through willows, that you at least make a little bit of noise as you're going through them. Or if you go through dense brush, make a little bit of noise. The silent method might lead to some unexpected and maybe potentially rotten encounters. I also think that's why trail running tends to increase risk because you're quiet and you're moving rather quickly. So, and I guess my bugaboo, the last one that I want to mention before we get to our stories, hiking in the dark is
oh boy.
yeah, sorry to be that guy again. I know everybody likes to start super early, and that's for a lot of peaks. You and I have had to do that a number of times. We'll probably keep doing it, but I'm pretty pointed when you and I hike in the dark. I talk a lot. If you're hiking in the dark alone, I think it's imperative that you make a little bit of noise because animals tend to be a little bit more active when it's dark.
Spot on. Kind of comes with the territory. If you're going to be in the dark, you can't see them and they can't see you. So it already naturally is a bit more of ground for being able to run into something that you don't necessarily want to run into. So it's a
Yeah,
good call. As early as I like to get a start just to beat weather, that's the main driver for me. But yeah, you're spot on. You don't want to run into anything on the trail that might do you harm if you scare it. So
friend of the show, Laura Clark, has in her book a couple examples of running into things in the dark. One of them,
yep.
a bull moose. I always think of Rocky and Bullwinkle every time I
Yeah,
mention,
uh-huh.
or
That's
the
right.
Flintstones when I mention bull moose. But yeah, she ran into a bull moose very early in the morning, and those encounters are numinous and strange and mysterious, but they
Hmm.
can turn the other way fairly quickly.
For
So,
sure.
well,
Yep.
Eric, I'm excited to hear your first wildlife encounter story. We haven't told these to each other yet, and maybe we've never even told these to each other in all our comings and goings. So I'm excited to hear what you got.
Well, I've got two, like you do. I think I've at least alluded to the second one, but the first one won't be a surprise to you because you were there when this one happened. So
Oh, wow.
you and I were hiking in the very, very South Mosquitoes at the Buffalo Peaks. We're trying to
Mm-hmm.
summit the Buffalo Peaks. And so we got to the top of both of them. We're coming down. We're kind of skirting along the base of both of those peaks and we run into this herd of something. I don't know if you and I ever fully identified what these were that we ran into, but
Jackalopes.
that's the best. These would have been really big jackalopes, but all we saw initially was these little white butts just kind of jumping in front of us and kind of bounding away, going in the direction that we were going, actually. So
Mm-hmm.
we ended up kind of following them for a while.
Unfortunately, I
Um,
think we kind of inadvertently chased them.
Effectively, yeah,
Yeah.
we weren't trying to, but we were going in the same direction that they ended up going. So, kind of below the saddle between East and West Buffalo Peak, you and I stopped to take a break. And these animals, the best thing I can guess is that they were maybe pronghorns or something like that. They were on the side of the mountain above us, and we were below them. Their fur blended in really well,
Oh man,
color-wise,
it's like a cloaking device. They were camouflaged.
to the point where I ended up taking a picture at that moment that we were taking a break. And in this picture, I swear to you, and I swear to everybody, there were 8 to 10 of these creatures in the picture. And I go back afterwards, I look at this picture and I'm like, I cannot find these things to save my life. I can't even find the white butts. There's no butts in this picture. It's all just, it looks like a bunch of rocks. And so it's to the point where I send this picture to my buddy Travis,
Yeah.
and I'm like,
It's like one of those things we did with as kids in the 80s. Like, there are 14 deer in this picture. Can you find them all?
find
Right?
them. Seriously. I'm like, dude, can you help me find? There are animals in this picture. Can you help me find these creatures here? And he sent me a note back saying, dude, every question I've ever had about you, you just answered because there is absolutely no wildlife in this
Yeah.
picture. What? It's a bunch of rocks. You took a picture of a bunch of rocks, Eric, is what you did. And I'm like, dude, I swear there is a whole bunch
We
of
saw
these.
them moving. We knew
There
where
was
they were
something.
there because we saw them moving through the rocks.
They were bounding in front of us.
I take it those were either deer or very tan, lightly colored elk. Not like tan in the dark sense, tan in the color sense. Yeah, they blended incredibly well. They were
They did.
incredibly, I think the one thing that always amazes people that encounter wildlife, me especially, these animals weigh a few 100 pounds and they're like, I walk on rocks. I sound like I'm trying to throw rocks on the ground. Like that's how
You're
loud I
trying to
am.
kick him down.
Yeah, these animals, they weigh double what I do, and they're moving silently through a rock field, like a
Very
scree slope.
gracefully.
In it,
Yeah.
it's basically the kind of broken down saddle in between the east and west Buffalo Peak, and they were just kind of maneuvering through it with just absolute grace. We could see them moving, and they had a couple sentries that were closer to us that were kind of
Yep.
watching us,
Kind of watching us. Yep.
and then the probably the ladies and the kids were back behind, and they were kind of moving along through this rock field. And yeah, the word numinous is pretty big. Just this kind of mysterious moment of like, wow, they're there. Kind of see them, and you kind of don't.
hmm
It's like being watched. It's kind of creepy.
It was a little weird, and as a result, I have no actual physical record of it because you can't see them in anything that I would have taken. So it was fun. It was a cool, a very positive wildlife encounter. We weren't that close to them. I don't know. They were, I don't know, 30, 40 feet above us, so they weren't super close. But it was good. That was a lot of fun. So that's my first animal encounter. What are you going to kick us off with, Zach?
Well, I'm gonna do one that's kind of maybe negative. I don't know. I've never been like mauled or anything,
Yeah.
so maybe one of the ones that's probably a little bit more instructive. And this was in the Gore Range. It was going up, I think, Pitkin Creek. I had my dog with me, so this was back in the day when Lacey, the super Sheltie, was hiking with me a lot.
Yep.
And we had hiked up, I think, to Pitkin Lake, maybe. And we were hiking down. As we were hiking down, it rained on us, and it wasn't like a gentle rain. It was like the skies have just decided to just release every bit of moisture on us rain. And
Uh,
so, and that's, I'm telling this for a reason. Like, it's kind of misty and cold after it. Like, so it rained and then it stopped. And poor little Lacey, she's just soaked to the bone, which tended to happen a lot in the gores with us. And she's pretty wet. She's kind of walking behind me. Normally, she would be kind of running up in front of me by about 6 feet, and she would run maybe 10 or 20 feet and then wait and then run, and then I'd catch up and so forth. This time around, she's behind me. And kind of like what I was talking about, we're kind of walking along the trail there and turn a corner, and there's a giant female moose
oh
and
wow.
her little baby moose next to her. We're maybe 15 feet away. Like it was one of those where it's like, whoops. I just kind of seized up, like, huh, and just was like, oh, there's a moose. And then I look at
hmm
Lacey, and Lacey's like, she's like, you could tell she finally alerted to it because, and I think she would have been alerted earlier, but it had rained, so there was no scent in the air.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Got it.
it was this weird moment it was like for like 2 minutes, it was like this standoff. It was kind of
For 2 minutes, really?
like it looked at me, I looked at it, like it was like the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like if you could pan in on our faces, like I looked at it, it looked back at me. Lacey was looking at the baby moose. The baby moose was looking at her. We just kind of stared at each other. And I was like, because I know the script for a bear, which is look big and back away,
Hmm. Yeah. Yep.
right? And don't turn your back for the love of Pete. Don't run. If
Hmm.
it's a
Yep.
pack of wolves, like you just need to be bold and like make a lot of
Yep.
gestures and stuff, right? Here I'm like, what do I do with a moose? like,
And then Moose's kid, like that adds
yeah,
a variable that often can be the difference between a good and a bad encounter.
yeah, and moose are notoriously kind of irascible, and particularly bull moose. Thankfully, this was a
Hmm.
cow.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, they notoriously though could run me down and beat me up or something. And I was like, I don't know what to do here, so I kind of froze. And thankfully, it just kind of slowly looked away and it kind of looked back at me and then it just kind of started walking. But of course, it just walked down the trail. So it's like,
You're like,
what do I do now? Do I like follow this?
gotta follow this thing down.
So I was like, hey, Lacey, we're just going to wait here for a minute. I just kind of watched it
Or
and I
maybe
like
30 minutes or
took
something.
out a snack and yeah, but it kind of sauntered away. Like I think moose have this kind of air of invincibility about them. And so it just kind of sauntered away, but it really made me think like that could have gone another way. It could have charged
Yeah.
at me. And there are cases where moose will charge at people. So yeah, that was a particularly, and there's a ton of elk in the gore. So I was aware that that's a possibility and I'd seen moose before, but never that close up, and never
Yeah.
with their little baby, and never in a setting where I think it felt threatened for a half second. So
Hmm.
I'm not sure what to make of that. People can write me and tell me what I should have done there. I probably should have made a little noise, but I was afraid I had scared it too much already. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, especially if it was just standing there and not doing anything. Like normally I would have expected they would have been startled enough to say, okay, I'm just gonna go and hope that this pale white human isn't gonna track me down or try and, do something crazy. But yeah, if it was as startled as you were, wow, that's a tricky one.
Well, it is tricky. Yeah, in that case, I wasn't quite sure what to do. Just by virtue of the nature of the trail, I was pretty darn close to it. Like I could see its no like its nostrils
Nostrils.
flaring, like and I was like, "Huh, this is interesting." There's that minute, like what do I do here? So, I'm not sure how if I had to replay it if I would do it any differently than that. I didn't want to make any sudden movements. I knew that. I was afraid that my dog would. She was,
Yeah.
her. She was incredibly well behaved, but sometimes she could take off and chase things. But in this case, she made a really good call because she was not on a leash. And I know someone may get mad at me that I didn't have my dog leashed, but she just kind of looked at it the same way I did. And I remember her kind of looking up at me and me looking at her and her being like, hmm. So I'm glad she didn't do anything. But that's one that could have gone either way. And I mentioned that because I know a lot of people will have those experiences with deer, with ungulates, deer, elk, and moose. And actually, probably, I should mention this as like a sub story. Probably one of the scariest encounters I've had was in New Mexico in the area around the Truchas Peaks where they graze cows.
Mm.
Now, this isn't technically wildlife, but I came through some willows and I encountered a bull cow, or I guess yeah, bull cow doesn't make sense. That's
Bull.
a bull, yeah, male, female, what? Encountered a bull, and it was quite close to me, and I was much more scared of that bull encounter than I was of encountering that moose because it looked squirrely. So
Yeah.
yeah, all that's to say, I think in those cases, it's probably best to make a little bit of noise and to not do anything silly in those moments. But yeah,
Interesting.
what's your next story, Eric? What you got for us?
Well, my next story, I guess my last story as well, also involves an unintended encounter that could have gone a different way than it did. So,
This is going to be a
I think
Sasquatch story, isn't it?
it's going to be close. It is actually, for a second, we did think it might have been Bigfoot. But
Yeah.
so I've alluded to this story, I think, earlier in previous episodes. So many years ago, my buddy Travis and my other buddy JJ. JJ, I think I've mentioned him just very briefly. One of my best friends for a long
Mm-hmm.
time. He's awesome. So he and Travis came out to visit, and we did some camping in Holy Cross Wilderness. And so JJ came out to kind of just scope for potential places to hunt elk.
Yeah.
And Travis and I had intention of summiting Holy Cross, which we did. Camped for a few days. We did some fishing. We had some trout. So in the midst of this, there was an afternoon where we were just hanging out at camp, and we see this brown blob come towards us. And that's where we think, okay, it's Bigfoot's coming. Okay, we're about to, this is about to happen here, finally. And it wasn't Bigfoot. So this blob keeps coming towards us, and we're thinking, what is happening here? Like we were trying to very calmly make our presence known and make some noise, talk to each other, and but not be crazy or do anything that might frighten whatever it was that was coming. And this blob just literally is making a beeline for us, a slow beeline, but it's not moving its path. It's not changing its course based on the fact that we're there. So eventually it gets close enough to where we can tell it's a moose. And we couldn't discern how old this moose was. We think it was maybe a juvenile, but this moose literally walked into our camp and was walking right by our tent.
What are you gonna do about
And
it?
like all three of us did the same exact thing. We pull out our cell phones and start taking video of this moose
Yeah.
walking through our camp. Actually, my video is actually of Travis taking a video in front of me
Mm.
of this moose that's walking through our camp. And this moose is like 20 feet from us. And it's just, it doesn't care that we're there. And it doesn't seem frightened by us. It's cautious. But this whole time, we're just thinking, I think we were all of one mind. Okay, we don't want to scare this thing. We don't want it to stay. Like we obviously don't want another roommate tonight. So we're just like, okay, we'll be
Uh,
very calm and like we're saying, make noise, but try not to frighten this thing. And eventually it kind of stopped in front of Travis. Again, 15, 20 feet in front of him, looks at us and we're like statues. Like, what do we do here? And it turns its head. It keeps walking in the same line it's been going, walks, 20, 30 feet, turns its head, looks at us, make sure we're not gonna do something dumb, turns its head back, keeps walking a bit, turns back, looks at us, make sure we're not doing anything dumb, and then it keeps doing that for, the next 100 yards or so, and eventually it's out of sight. And so we didn't really know what to make of that whole thing. If we were kind of in its stomping grounds, if it was just like a teenager out for a nice little walk and mom and dad didn't happen to be around, which we were thankful for. Didn't really know what to make of it, but kind of an interesting encounter. And I haven't talked with Travis about it in a while. I'd have to kind of get his thoughts on how that all went down, but that's the closest I've ever been to a moose, for sure.
that's quite close. You
Closer
know,
than we wanted to be.
moose are interesting because they're a little bit more, they're not as skittish as deer and elk
Mm,
are.
yeah.
Deer and elk are largely people avoidant. Like if they see you, they're going to try to get out of there in some way. Whereas moose, I don't think they have that attitude. They're kind of like, I'm here, you're here. I don't care what you do. If you come close, I'll probably have to do something about it. They're a lot more nonchalant. And that whole encounter just kind of typifies what I think of moose. They're like, what are you going to do? Huh?
Yeah, I'm
And
5 times your size. What are you
I'm,
gonna do about it?
I weigh 1,000 pounds when I'm lean. Like I'm good. Moose also, because there aren't many predator dynamics anymore in the Rockies, like
Mm,
they're not being actively hunted by anything.
yeah.
Um, there's not enough. Some people may get mad at this. There's not enough wolves to harass them.
Mm,
So they tend to have a little bit more bold attitude about those things. And anytime I've encountered moose, yeah, that seems to be the general gist of it. Like my encounter with that moose and the gore, if that was a deer, it would have just split.
just gone. Yep.
They'd have gone, or goats or bighorn sheep. They'd be like, I got to get out of here. Moose, they're like,
Hmm.
I'm going to take my time.
I love it. So, do you have one more?
I,
encounter to share with us, Zach?
I do. This is like the most epic day ever. And this is the most positive wildlife story I could ever tell.
Oh, I can't
Um,
wait for this.
and they're on peaks that you and I have talked about doing. So this is in the lower Sangres, below La Vida Pass, near Cucharas Pass. So this is Trinchera Peak, leaning left peak, and
Hmm.
leaning right peak, or leaning south. I'm not
Is it
sure.
leaning north and south? I thought.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
leaning north and south. Thank you. So I did these alone. Well, I did them with my dog. So again, this is me and a Sheltie. I hike. It's just an absolutely beautiful day. It was one of those days where it was foggy to start, and as I hiked, I actually hiked up above the clouds.
Sounds very
And
sangre-ish.
oh, it's so good. And I got to the top of Trinchera. This was kind of near the end of the summer, so it was like mid-August. Got to the top of Trinchera, was feeling good, and the fog was kind of burning off, so I could see down into the valleys. It was a really beautiful day. And so as I'm kind of working my way over to Leaning North Peak, kind of on the saddle between Trinchera and Leaning North, I see some mountain sheep. And I'm like, oh, wow, mountain sheep. This is great. So I'm like, I keep hiking on. There's maybe 5 to 6 of them. And they're kind of in a little herd doing their kind of loose thing. I was like, wow, that's great. So I hike along and they're kind of beneath me. They're about 40 feet below me. And Lacey's kind of doing her thing. She's kind of just trailing right behind me. A herding dog that doesn't want to herd sheep.
I
But
was just gonna say you've got a Shetland sheepdog with you. Is that problematic at all?
no, she's chill. She's just taking it all in. And so we're hiking along. And then I'm getting near the top of Leaning North. And kind of near the top of Leaning North, there's a herd of 4 or 5 bighorn sheep. And I was
Okay.
like, oh, this is fantastic. What a
Yeah.
day, huh? And as I get closer and closer, I notice that below the bighorns is a herd of deer, maybe 20, 30 deer.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, wow, this is getting good. So I've got the goats or the mountain sheep, I've got the bighorn sheep, and I've got the deer. So I get to the top of Leaning North and I'm kind of looking around and I look into the valleys below and I see all these brown dots in both valleys, like the ones below the saddle between Leaning North and Leaning South. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. I wonder what that is. So this is where it gets really good. I head south down off of Leaning North and I'm going to go to Leaning South Peak. I'm on the saddle there and there's a moment where I just stop and I look down. I look to my left, which would be to the east, and in the valley beneath that saddle, there's at least, I would say, between 100 and 150. I think they're just mix of deer and elk. And I was like,
Wow.
holy smokes. Meanwhile, I look to my right. There's another herd of elk just ranging along the whole mountainside there. Probably another 100 elk there.
Oh my gosh.
Then there's the deer behind me. And then the bighorns have like taken an interest in me. And so they're kind of walking behind me. And then in front of me, there's another, like on the way up leaning south, there's another herd of deer there.
Holy cow.
At one point, I pulled up the pictures just before I wanted to talk about this. I probably was surrounded by between 300 and 400 deer, elk, sheep, and sheep.
Oh
I've
my goodness.
I've never seen anything like it. I've seen a herd of elk kind of moving like a swarm of locusts in the San
Yeah.
Juans before. I've never been so surrounded by wildlife in my life. Like it was. Oh, and then just out like it was like cinematic out of nowhere, like a golden eagle flew over my head. Right, like
Oh my
I was like,
gosh.
whoa, and I just stood there. I actually like sat down. I was like, I don't want to bug these animals, and I sat down and had a snack. Lacey just kind of laid down next to me. And as we're sitting there, the elk are kind of coming back up the mountain, up the hillside towards me. I can hear the elk beneath me in that valley below, like making noises, moving around. I can hear the bighorns kind of munching on grass. It was one of the most sensational wildlife experiences I've ever had. you hear these stories of pioneers, of people coming into Colorado in the 1870s and 80s, and every valley was just filled with deer. They also talk
Yep.
about how many flies there were, right? Because it was just thick with just animal presence.
Yeah.
For me, that was probably one of the coolest wildlife encounters ever. I had to keep moving, so after about 30 minutes of this, I just went up, leaning south, and then the hard part came. I was the easiest descent, if anyone's done it at that point. If you terminate it leaning south, I probably should have kept going, but I decided to come down this back down to that saddle between leaning north and south, and then descend into that valley where all those elk were. And it was the weirdest thing. As I started to descend, the elk had just vanished.
Wow.
I'm sure they had just gone into the trees. And so I went down into that valley, or I kind of terraced above the valley. I still didn't want to mess with those animals.
Yeah.
And as I'm kind of traversing across to eventually get back to I think it's the Big Blue Lake campground or something like that, as I'm kind of traversing across, I would see an elk here or there, and I'd be like, for every one I see, I know there's like 2 dozen
Yeah.
somewhere else because I've just seen this just absolutely amazing concentration of wildlife. Like it was, I've got pictures, just pictures and pictures and pictures of just clumps of wildlife. Not like the Buffalo Peaks where it's like you can't make them out. Here it's like there's so many. You look at it and it's like that must be the rocks because there's just so many of them.
So when you and Lacey are on the saddle between leaning north and leaning south, and you're just kind of hanging out and taking this all in, as you're surrounded by all of this wildlife, was there ever a moment of what if anything tries to charge me? Or what, did you ever feel any sense of any danger? Or, I mean, most of the animals you mentioned were pretty much calm, innocuous anyway, so they wouldn't want to mess with you. But because there were just so many in these large herds, you never felt like this fear of, oh, what if something just happens to go sideways here?
It was oddly one of the most peaceful feelings I've ever had. I had this general sense that there was like this. This sounds so anthropomorphic and weird for me, but there was just this general sense of peace in the air.
Like you were one of them?
Well, I mean, there was certainly a sense where they were all cool with each other. Like
Hmm.
these elk and these bighorn were just kind of wandering amidst each other. The sheep were kind of
That's
wandering through the
fascinating.
deer. The herd below had I clearly they were mule deer and elk. I can tell the difference. And they were just kind
Hmm.
of like hanging out together. And I always thought, man, I thought they kind of ran in their own kind of with their own species. They paid me zero mind at all. They just
Like a big party.
yeah, it was like everybody's like, "There's plenty of grass. Like, what's to worry about, guys?" They had their little sentry. They would look up here and there as I was
Sure.
moving.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
they kept a watch on me, but there was no sense of alert. They never moved. Like they never made any sudden movements or anything. They didn't run off. Nothing seemed to spook them.
Hmm.
Everybody just seemed really happy that day. It was probably one of the top 5 moments of my hiking life.
That's fascinating. And what a cool experience to be in the midst of, like you said, hundreds of animals of all different species. Like,
Mm-hmm.
can you imagine if there was like a mountain cat in that area and
Oh
like
man.
that whole thing it ended right away, like no party.
Yeah. The general feeling was so kumbaya that like that I could just see like a mountain lion kind of wander through the middle of the elk and just lay down and they'd lick it and it was all good or something because it was just seemed so like utopian for a minute there.
Yeah,
Everybody's just munching grass, having a good old time. Uh,
that's fascinating.
I have to say, there's probably something to the fact that that area is basically roadless, and
Yeah.
that just south of there is, what is it, the Trinchera Ranch or whatever that
Yeah, the private land. Yep.
where Culebra and Red Mountain.
Culebra and Red Mountain are. Yep.
And I thought, well, maybe they kind of are actively trying to steward large herds like that, and maybe that's something that maybe this is a byproduct of that. But yeah, clearly everything was really, really chill that day. And it was just one of those moments where I got to witness things in the wild like that. And I think it helped that it was late season. They were
Mm,
all kind of congregating together, kind of getting ready for the winter. But yeah, easily one of my favorite wildlife encounters.
that is super cool. I'm actually jealous. It makes me want to hang out in the Sangres even more with the mist and all of the Jane Goodall stuff going on. That's really cool.
We're doing it this summer, Eric. We're gonna knock that out. We're gonna do the old we're gonna do a car
Bust up
shuttle.
Maxwell. Yeah.
We're gonna do the whole chain from top to bottom, baby.
Ranchera
Um,
all the way down to what, Mariquita or
yeah,
how far can we go down? I don't know if
I think
Mariquita's maybe on private land.
De Anza or Mariquita are the southernmost extent of that, where you run
Yeah.
into private property issues that
Hmm.
I'd rather not make anybody mad.
No,
Um,
agreed.
so yeah, like we're gonna run the chain this summer, Eric. We're gonna do this.
That's super cool.
So yeah, hopefully we have a day like that, right?
I look forward to that. Well, Zach, thanks for sharing those cool stories and your wisdom of all the years and all the mountains and all of the encounters, good and should we say neutral, I guess.
Yeah, good and well, mystical almost.
Missed, yeah.
I was a fish biologist for a bunch of years in New Mexico. I could tell some
Yep.
cool rattlesnake stories if anyone ever
Oh,
wants
I bet.
those.
I
But we're
bet.
talking. This is a mountain podcast, so I was like, I've got stories about bobcats, and they introduced oryx, which is a African game species. They introduced them to White Sands Missile Range
Okay.
in southern New Mexico, probably about 30 years ago. Surprise, surprise, oryx just decided to like not stay in the missile range and they started wandering around. And so now they're in southern New Mexico. They're along the Rio Grande. And so I have some cool oryx stories of like an oryx ran into me while I was using the bathroom one time in the
Oh
trees. And
gosh.
yeah, rattlesnakes trying to bite me, all kinds of fun
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
we've got to keep it to the mountains here. So maybe some other day. But I enjoyed your moose story, Eric. That was that was fun. I really did think that was going to be a Sasquatch story for a minute. So
Well, that's what we thought for a second. We were going to have to do the rattlesnake and Bigfoot podcast, and yeah, that's not the direction it ended up going. Maybe that's a good thing.
yeah. Well, if anyone else wants to share their wildlife encounters with us or some of their wisdom, how to deal with moose in general, I think is a sub theme here. How can they get a hold of us, Eric?
Yeah, we would love any stories and any wisdom. That would be awesome. You can email us at greensandbluespodcast@gmail.com. It's probably the most common way that we've gotten listeners to write into us. But we do have a Facebook group, and our YouTube channel has a bunch of videos of us gallivanting around. And I don't think there's any wildlife in the YouTube videos yet, but maybe we should start posting some of those.
Usually I'm too stunned to like pull my phone out.
Can leave us a voicemail at our website too at greensandbluespodcast.podbean.com. I'm still waiting. I've been testing things out and everything seems to be in working order. So unless Charles Barkley wants to make another appearance, we're patiently hoping to hear from our listeners on the audio side of things too.
Excellent. Well, in the coming months, I think we've got some more interviews lined up. We'll tell you about those when they come along. We've got a few ideas there and got a few other kind of eccentric show ideas that maybe don't involve Charles Barkley. So
But they could.
you never know, Eric. Um, so, yeah, with all that, we hope all of you are doing well wherever you are this time of year. And we will hopefully see you. Do we ever see you? Hopefully, you'll listen to us again soon.